You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
I hope as I talk to you and how you hear my voice, be that in your ear or out loud, I hope you're just finishing pouring yourself a cup of tea, maybe a glass of warm milk, as long as it's something with chamomile. I hope you're getting ready for bed. I hope you're feeling relaxed and fulfilled with the work you have accomplished that day. I hope you moisturized. Maybe you put on one of those blindfolds that are like super silky that women in Dove shampoo commercials put on when it's time to go to bed. Because once you're comfortable, once you get yourself settled, let's open up the dictionary. The thing about the dictionary is it's full of words. I do not think anybody would argue that. But on top of just having words in the dictionary offers you meaning. It offers you interpretations, definitions, and applicable uses and context for those words. All of them, almost. Pretty much all of them. Not taking into account like slang or anything like that. Even though at this point, maybe more than 50% of communication is done via slang or foot pics or pictures of other parts of people's bodies. Anything other than using your mouth, people are starting to figure out how to communicate with, which could either be a good thing or a bad thing. But back to the dictionary. Get in bed, take a sip of your chamomile, put those blinders on, wrap your hair up in a damp towel, go to bed, and let me read to you the definition of the word strange. What strange means. Now, there's 4 primary contexts or versions of the word strange that you would use. And these are, 1, a different from what is usual, ordinary, or unexpected. Number 2, not entirely comfortable or well. Number 3, unaccustomed to. And number 4, not native to or naturally belonging in any place of external origin, kind, or character. What I want to focus on, or at least the one that I feel is the most accurate or really does it for me, the one that really hits the nail right on the proverbial head for this guy, for this bozo, would be number 4, which is not native to or naturally belonging in a place of external origin, kind, or character. I think there has been maybe rising, maybe at a really increased rate, maybe at the rate it's always been happening all along. Maybe I'm just getting older and more mature enough as a person, and I've been a part of whatever the fuck is this thing is, that I'm starting to pick up on enough of it. But I think times have never, ever, ever, ever been stranger. And keep in mind, that's coming off of a year that had a reality TV star pandemic weapon that also included Space Jam 2. I think it's still getting weirder. It's getting real weird. As I talk to you, and just right now, I am maybe 7 hours removed from my second vaccine shot. I got the follow-up. I did it. I fulfilled my duty to the fullest extent required of me by Australian law. I got shot up with the second booster, their closer, whatever the propaganda shot is, full of hot liquid metal in my arm that I'm going to get. So couples that have annoying children that ruin meals for others can go to the restaurants. I got this vaccine to just do my part to make the world get back to a point of the opposite of strange, or actually native and naturally belonging in a place. Because right now, it feels like everything is the exact opposite way in which it should go, or the exact opposite way in which it natively would work. And if you don't believe me, I think it's on all scales. And I'm not bringing this up to wax poetic and then all of a sudden start hammering like Biden over Afghanistan, because plenty of people have done that. And don't worry, I will be part of them at some point. But just even in a personal sense, like just strange, not even in a, in the calamity sense, even though, of course, the world's crumbling and what we're doing is focusing on transgendered bathroom Olympics. But what I'm talking about in strange is just your personal life. Like, let me just paint you a picture. Do you know how my day started? To just talk about strange, to talk about just a peculiar way to spend time. I wake up and I'm walking into my living room and I see both of my parents, which is great because, you know, they're still alive and I'm lucky enough to still have them as I enter, you know, closer to 30 than 20. You know what I'm saying? And it's also really, really sad because I know I'm not supposed to wake up in my parents' home at this point in time. I'm not even on their fucking medical insurance anymore. Like, I'm essentially a transient ne'er-do-well who is staying in their bed and breakfast indefinitely at this point. But apart from all that shit, which I'm really at this point trying to get out of my mind because I'm like, dog, it's 9:30. Give yourself a break for a second and have a cup of coffee. I walk in, I see my parents, and they're watching fucking Billy Ray Cyrus of Old Town Road fame and nothing else getting interviewed by Dan Rather. If you don't start your day by walking into the kitchen and seeing your parents watching Billy Ray Cyrus get interviewed by Dan Rather, that's a tragedy because, man, you're missing out on a feeling of just delightful confusion. But also, you can't tell me that's not strange. You can't tell me that's not normal. It's not at all. And this might sound a little silly, but I think it's a microcosm of just how frequently flabbergastingly absurd shit is occurring. And I'm just trying to point it out. I'm not trying to even stop it. I'm not even saying really it's a bad thing that everything has seemed to have just smoked PCP levels of novelty. It kind of keeps life exciting. That was most of what I thought when Trump was in office and he was still allowed on Twitter. And if you thought having him as president was strange, which it definitely was, think about how stranger it is still that now Donald Trump, former president of the United States, held a rally in Alabama encouraging people during a pandemic to get vaccinated and was damn near booed off stage. All of those words in that order create a true factual sentence that happened. That's strange. That is definitely not native or naturally belonging in a place that feels of external origin, kind, or character. That's not entirely comfortable or well-inspiring. But speaking to things a little more serious that are also strange, I think it's strange that we're letting people die in Afghanistan, still. And we're letting them die for a reason no one really has been able to explain to me in a way that seems even more than 20% accurate. Because the idea that, like, we should get out of Afghanistan, novel idea, of course. I don't want any wars. I don't want war to happen. If a war does happen, I want to make sure not only are we coming out on top, but there are not enemies or other parties left alive to remember the story if we are forced to go to war. You know what I'm saying? If there is an instance in which we've decided all bets are off, and this is death or death, you versus us, I don't even want people in this country to know what the word empathy means. If you're working for the military, I want you to be a motherfucking savage. Because I like the way I live. And if you think that's harsh, if you think that's mean, whether you know it or not, you agree with me, you agree with this. But what I could also assure you is that people in countries who are on the opposite end of the America picnic, they sure as hell feel the same way I do, only about them, not about their country. So the thing that's strange to me is the fact that everyone is all up in arms, everyone's up in arms, but not at the same time, not up in arms enough, if that makes any sense, over what's happening in Afghanistan. And we're pulling out of the war. We're pulling out of the war, quote unquote. We're pulling out of the country for, again, like I said, I don't know, really. You hear a lot of people saying, well, we just lost the war, so it's time we leave. We should go. We've been there for 20 years. What else are we doing there? Sure, fair, true. There are military bases, for America at least, all over the fucking world, all over the globe, in strategically picked spots that provide America the benefit of geography traversing, or getting supplies to other people, or being near friendly countries in times of attack and war and stuff. All of this is picked and by design. There's a reason we have a fucking base in Greenland or Papua New Guinea or, well, not Switzerland. I almost said Switzerland. No one's allowed to fight in Switzerland or bring the military involved, and you're not allowed to ask why. But we have military bases still in Germany. Still. And Germany's cool with it. And there's some parts of the world where we have bases that they're not exactly cool with it. But fucking tough Thailand, fucking tough Guam, deal with it. We have big boy shit to do sometimes. So it's weird to say that we needed to leave Afghanistan, because do you know how many people, how many soldiers we had in Afghanistan? 1,500. That's 1,500. That's pretty much 2 graduating classes from a suburban town, 2 high school graduation classes of a suburban town. That's really, I mean, it's a noticeable amount of people. And to be very, very explicitly clear, because I think this is starting to get lost on people, everyone matters equally. Everyone is equally as important and has as much value as the other person. It's up to you if you want to maintain that personally and take the actions and steps required to do so, but everyone is equally important. Now, that being said, 1,500 people, when you consider just the scale of the people on this rock we inhabit and spin on in space, hell of a lot more than 1,500. I would go so far as to say a lot more than 1,500, because I already said that. So that's why I went as far as to say it again. So 1,500 people. And today, you just read about there was another attack in the Kabul airport where 13 U.S. soldiers lost their lives. So that's 13 of that 1,500. That's awful. That's something that, A, didn't need to happen. It only happened. And sure, you could say they only lost their lives because they were physically in Afghanistan, but it only happened because of what fucking Joe Biden, or whoever is telling Joe Biden to make his lips look like the words that they want, that we're going to pull out all of a sudden. Hey, bad guys. Hey, Taliban. Hey, people who we have been for nearly 20 years proxy training and supplying with our own weapons, and then also attacking all of their family members and high-ranking leaders in their groups, and just generally developing a sense of hatred that will leave the average person in that country with a desire to kill themselves before trying to do anything positive for America. Hey, all of those guys, all of those angry, military-trained and armed jihadists, we just want to let you know our last day of the trip is September 5th. Don't make any plans according to that information. Please continue to spin your wheels out in the big hot sandbox called Iraq and Afghanistan and Iran. And I know you're supposed to say Iran, but I don't pronounce the names of evil countries correctly on purpose. Afghanistan. Afghanistan. I can do both. I want to be very clear. I know it's not the Kabul airport. I know it's the Kabul airport. I know these things. So don't think I'm just not, I'm ignorant of this. I'm choosing to sound this belligerent in my opinion on this matter because it's belligerently, it's dumb, obviously. It's stupid because on one hand, it just looks like the administration is just without a plan and kind of just acting haphazardly. But on the other hand, there's people fucking dying. There's people dying who went to work where they've been going to work for 8 years, right? If they were stationed on one of the bases out there. Not a lot of them, mind you, again, 1,500. And the only reason they lost their lives were because there was an attack that was only possible because for some reason a fucking mannequin Muppet president decided we have to leave and pull out the 1,500 dudes and gals we have over there who are doing nothing more than generally helping the people of Afghanistan eat and drink water. We're gonna all of a sudden pull them home, and then all the bad guys over there who haven't been even remotely close to touching a fucking trigger or a Quran in that order, all of a sudden they're gonna have a reason to feel big in their pants, stop fucking their goats, and decide to give it a go at organizing. And they're gonna try and make a bomb out of a JanSport backpack that we probably left during some act of charity. The only reason those 13 people lost their lives is because who fucking still... I don't know. The best I could think of, the absolute best I could think of as to why we had to leave Afghanistan all of a sudden was just because, again, still, I mean, if Biden ran on promising we're going to end the war in Afghanistan, one, Biden loved the war in Afghanistan. When Bush, 20 years ago at this point, wow, when Bush was telling everyone we're going to go to Afghanistan, and honestly, Bush was a motherfucking gangster. He might be involved in a weird family that has done horrifically strange things. He also might be mildly retarded, but what George W. Bush was a goddamn gangster at the same time. Afghanistan, following 9/11, according to our intelligence, the weapons of mass destruction, whether or not you understand the concept, and that's not me talking down, as usual, on anybody. I really didn't know this until recently, but when countries or governments use terms like weapons of mass destruction, that doesn't mean it is literally a big, giant Dr. Evil-style missile thing somewhere inside of the Cheyenne Mountain Complex or underwater in Guam or whatever the fuck. It literally could be the chemistry, like the actual math problem behind what it takes or what's required to make a fucking nuclear weapon. Because it's not like those things are patented or trademarked or like magical spells that John Dee and Francis Bacon figured out in northeastern Philadelphia. What I'm saying is like weapons of mass destruction could be like ravioli, formioli, give me the formioli type of thing. So when George W. Bush said Afghanistan had weapons of mass destruction, he didn't mean we had giant missiles. And in fact, that's what the fuck everyone is all confused about when they say, well, where were the weapons? Why didn't we see no weapons? We went to his weapons of mass destruction depot building, and there were little beknownst to us, boss, it was empty. A weapon of mass destruction could be a fucking notebook. It could be a cocktail napkin. It could be anything. It could be a text message at this point, for the love of God. It could be any of that. A weapon of mass destruction is the formula for how to make a nuclear reaction out of plutonium and uranium and I don't know, your mom's anus or whatever the formula is. I'm not going to go and say all of it because that's how, similar to Breaking Bad legally, when you show how to make meth on television, all of a sudden the FDA starts knocking on your door. So if you really need to know, or if you're rewinding, let me spare you the trouble. The secret recipe to a weapon of mass destruction is your mother's anus. So when George W. Bush told the American people they have weapons of mass destruction, Afghanistan, we're going to come and fucking skin all you, and then he told the rest of the world, who wasn't even really involved in the conflict, you have 24 hours to be on our side, or we're going to assume you're on their side. That is gangster. That is fucking cold-blooded chili pimp style. That's some iceberg, Texas Ranger, 90 miles an hour, down the center of the plate, September 13th shit. Can't take that from him. And that man did his time, setting a series of, motion of events that is forever changing the course of this country and time and history itself. And now he just spends his days painting, doing fucking watercolors about lobster rolls and hanging out with Michelle Obama on Sesame Street. Good for him. God love him. But the people, those 13 people, just yesterday, who lost their lives because they ended up stationed in a country that 20 years ago the current president thought was harboring the people responsible for the tragedy on 9/11. Those people who were probably at this base for more than 1 year, at least, who had a regular way of life, who weren't going and seeing conflict or battle every day. Sure, like there's people patrolling at all times because you're in fucking Afghanistan, obviously. But it's not like you're in Saving Private Ryan every morning. 13 of those people lost their life because the Muppet, the Geppetto, Joe Biden has somehow managed to both look like Pinocchio and Geppetto. That guy ran for president saying he was going to get us out of Afghanistan, which sounds cute, which is a nice ordering of words, which kind of is a sentence that kind of strikes at both aisles, really. For nothing. It's because the average public didn't understand why we were there in the first place. If you fast forward, or fast back, you know how time is up in the air at this point. So if you go back to when Bush was saying the weapons of mass destruction and we're going into Afghanistan, most people, and this is just literally facts and history and statistics, the overwhelming majority of people agreed with that. Obviously, that opinion has soured as people didn't physically find the missiles, and we already talked about they did have them, they just didn't look the way you thought they would. And you know why you weren't right about guessing what a weapon of mass destruction looked like? It's because you're a fucking carpenter idiot mook. Don't think you know more than these people, because you don't. And I'm not someone who like appeals to people's, clothing or degrees on their walls or name status or whatever. But at the same time, if you're wearing neon highlighter color shirts and if you wear only 2 pairs of pants during the work week, shut the fuck up about foreign affairs. Shut the fuck up about vaccines. Just generally shut the fuck up. I think it would be a better world. Anyway, sorry to get back off point. So Bush was talking about the weapons of mass destruction. That was the right thing to do. We had to go to Afghanistan. And once we did the irreversible act of inserting ourselves at that point in history in their country, there was a set of consequences that happened over there, which we all know about. Maybe led to an opium crisis, maybe didn't, a whole bunch of other stuff, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. But once we're there, we're there. That's object permanence. And we already know that the American military has bases all over the world, which is why we're the shit and tits when it comes to the military, versus other countries. Because we're the most, supplied and armed, and we have bases everywhere. If you even think about trying to fuck with us, we have been waiting for you about 30 miles behind you to think that thought, and then we'll put a bullet in your head. That's great. So once we're in Afghanistan, even if we couldn't find Tim Osmond or Osama bin Laden, we're there now. So we're going to keep a base because why not? And also look at a map. Look at where Afghanistan is. Awfully close to Russia. Awfully close to the parts of Europe and entering Asia that we're not particularly friendly with. So maybe we should have a base where we start to enter that no-go zone. You know what I'm saying? And then it became a sentiment over the last 10 years that we should want to get out of Afghanistan. And I was a sucker for it. And there's also elements of that argument that are 100% true. It doesn't look like most of the country wanted us there in the first place. I don't know if that's true. Of course, that's just videos or clips or articles or things I've seen in America. So who really knows? But maybe there is an argument to not being an interventionalist, to really being someone who just wants to stay isolated from all global conflict, because then it'll let us focus on us and our problems. And Lord knows there are a lot of problems exclusive to America, literally right now as we talk. So maybe we should not worry about what's happening. Yeah, I get that. It does seem easier. It does seem like it would sidestep a lot of hysteria, lives lost both abroad and, here in our country. So maybe that's right. Maybe we should just withdraw from everywhere. Maybe if there's a war, some of the wars aren't ours to fight, so we shouldn't have them. Maybe the next time an authoritarian government ruled by a crazy person, seizes power, and builds death camps, maybe we shouldn't go liberate them. And that's something that I really had to face, where I was slippery and starting to lose my balance, I'll say, on the isolationist slide. You know, it's fun and it's easy. It seems like an easy solution to say, let's just fucking withdraw and not be a part of other countries' problems. But, you know, much like your own life, the solution to problems is to not abstain from attempting to solve them. And in the matter of, let's say, World War II, for example, we kind of had to do something. You know what I'm saying? We can't build camps where people kill people because they're not hollow earth lizard races, which is truly, at the end of the day, what the Nazis were all about. They were about hollow earth, Aryan, space lizard stuff. You may not want to know that. You may not believe that. But at the end of the day, that is what they thought. And that is what made them do the things that made us get into the war and try and stop it. So you tell me what's really happening. Anyway, we had to go to Afghanistan. So once we're there, pulling out, leaving the 1,500, what consequence did you think was going to happen if we got the 1,500 people? If we just, essentially what you're saying is, I want to be president, and for you to vote for me, I'm going to take us all out of Afghanistan. And all the people in the general public are going to go, yeah, we're going to leave Afghanistan. Now what? What do you think that means? Okay, we leave Afghanistan. We surrender the base to the Taliban? Well, no, I don't want to surrender the base to the Taliban. I wouldn't put it that way. Well, what the fuck do you think you're doing in a country almost teetering on, you know, caliphate status with the Taliban walking around being the Taliban? Do you see what I just did right there? What did you think was going to happen if we just take all of the, you know, the Green Berets and the good guys and boys home and the girls home? That is surrendering land that we used to stand on, that prevented bad guys from standing on it. Us leaving lets them stand on it. So that is surrendering something. Again, not a lot of this is that complicated. It's so shockingly simple. You make it more complicated in your head. Okay, so we're withdrawing from Afghanistan. That's great. We're back. That's 1,500 people that don't have to be in Afghanistan, minus, of course, the 13 that perished for fuck knows at this point. So now they're all back. Our soldiers are back, and now they'll see their families, their wife, their kids, their husband, whatever. They'll see them for a couple weeks until all of a sudden they get shipped out to fucking Greenland, or Japan, or China, or Mexico, or Guam, or inside of some fucking space research mountain to have their memories fucked with. Who knows what will happen to these people? But they won't be in Afghanistan, thank God. Why? Think about. Do you realize average people who aren't president or in the government, do you realize you've kind of been hoodwinked into emotionally believing in something that you didn't even know the entire thought? You didn't even know the whole plan. And worst of all, you didn't bother to ask a fucking follow-up question. Mr. President, why are we going to be withdrawing from Afghanistan? Well, he would probably, obviously he wouldn't know what to say because he can't talk and might be a literal dead person being pulled by strings. But if you were to ask the president, why are we withdrawing from Afghanistan? I would imagine his response, if he was being honest, and obviously presidents aren't, but if he was being honest, he would be like, I thought you guys wanted me to. Why am I pulling out of Afghanistan? What the fuck? Isn't that... Guys, why did I pull out of Afghanistan? You see, no one knows why we're doing it. Obama, to his credit, and Obama is it's unfair and both also something you have to do with almost any decision made by a president now, which is strange. But Obama was a landmark because he was not only a president, he was a president that reversed course on a lot of the things that he campaigned on to get into office, which, you know, typically is not something you like, but he was also, to his credit, pretty honest about some of the things he had to reverse course on. But he was also the first president to really deal with the internet, like the internet. Bush was president when the internet was still around, sure, but that was before any people, like, you know, had Twitter or could find out that his family was connected to Skull and Bones, and his great-great-grandfather gave a lot of money to Hitler and the Third Reich. But again, he was talking about the real internet. Obama was the first president that had to deal with every single decision, thought, and meal and jumper that he took, you know, in the fucking basketball courts of the White House, being overlooked and combed over and analyzed by every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the world. But what Obama did when he ran for office, and it worked, was say, we're going to withdraw from Afghanistan, because it was at that point everyone was just starting to, like, kind of collectively be over 9/11 and kind of start to think that maybe we were in this fucking putrid, arid sandbox dirt hole of Afghanistan for less than honest reasons. But then he gets into office and he changes course. Obama says, here's the deal. I was wrong about that. We can't just withdraw or bad things will happen. Kind of like a spinning plate situation, and you can't stop spinning plates because they fall. And that's just gravity, which is a theory. Who knows? Instead, Obama went on to use drones at a record pace. You know this. We all know this. That's really like one of the main, you know, critiques that people have of the guy now. The ones who even like him will be like, well, and he did use drones and stuff, and he gave a lot of soldiers Xbox controllers to kill, terrorists, as if that's a horrible thing. Which is weird for me to say, because again, like, I don't even believe in the death penalty. I really don't. There's something inherently fucking creepy to me about the entire legal system in the courtroom, and everyone getting dressed up, and a judge wearing a dumb outfit, and then lawyers putting on suits, and everyone putting gel in their hair, going through this weird, formal, quasi-religious, structured-based experience, all to decide if someone's going to get shot up full of state chemicals that kill them for a crime they committed. That's weird to me. But at the same time, I really don't have a problem with, you know, guys and gals who went through Hell Week getting Xbox controllers to fly planes that kill bad guys. That might sound callous, and I'm talking like I have the confidence of someone who's seen war, which is fucking ridiculous. It is absolutely bonkers that I am this cocky in my belief about, like, just being a fucking savage on the battlefield, because I'm not. I shouldn't say I'm not. I don't know. On one hand, I might be a medieval knight of epic training and skills and purpose. On the other hand, I might be what's called a cold, hard, unadulterated, unpasteurized bitch. Right now, if I'm being honest, I think the answer is somewhere in between for me. But I'm weird in that, like, I don't like conflict. I actively, in all my interactions, try to prevent conflict. But at the same time, if I, like, see a conflict, or if I see something or any type of situation that was already happening or doesn't involve me from the beginning, or basically if I see conflict that I can insert myself to, in, with, you know, whatever, I love that shit. I love getting in other people's conflicts. I look forward, I crave it, but I don't want to start it myself. It's weird. So I'm fucking strange, but, you know, welcome to the program. Now let's get serious. Joe Rogan, let's get serious. Anyway, I've never seen war, so I'm talking like, you know, fucking my balls are too big, but at the same time, my balls is enormous. And I believe the bad guys from that part of the world, which we've given thousands of years to try and, you know, get it together, put some water on your face, and stop trying to blow everything up in the name of 72 virgins and some guy who wrote a book when he was in prison and had, child wives. Looking at you, Muhammad. That was a bold swing for me to take. Call me Colin Headbow Coyle. I don't know if that was too far or not far enough, to be honest. Because who knows? Because shit has gotten strange. This country's foremost leading expert on Middle Eastern affairs, it seems right now at least to be maybe Ben Affleck. And if you think I'm just pulling that name out of thin air, out of the back crevice of my butt, out of your mother's anus, which is, of course, part of the recipe for nuclear weapons. If you think I just grabbed Ben Affleck's name out of the air, let me just let you know that Ben Affleck has a university degree from a region of this country we associate with the highest level of academics and research in Middle Eastern studies. That's right. Ben Affleck, the guy who said, you know what the best part of my day is? Waking up, getting out of the cab, and thinking you won't be here. That guy in the green House of Pain jumpsuit who told Matt Damon, as your best friend, the best part of my day is hoping I'll never see you again. He's the guy a lot of people right now are going to for an opinion and take on what's going on in the Middle East. As if Ben Affleck started studying it at its inception. As if this wasn't something that's been a conflict and written down for thousands of years. As if this wasn't happening geographically at least, in the cradle of civilization. That should be your first fucking hint that something strange is going on here. Why does the same thing keep happening in the same place over seemingly the same conflicts and the same results don't seem to stop us from doing the same thing over and over again? We're going to withdraw from Afghanistan. We're going to surrender it to the Taliban. And what they're going to do, give them time, not going to be overnight. They're going to organize. They're going to train. And they're going to plot. Because as long as we are American, as long as you go to work and go to a bar on the weekend and walk your dog and watch Ray Cyrus get interviewed by Dan Rather, as long as you're an American, as long as you're fucking living free and being brave in land of the home, or whatever the saying is, those guys in that part of the world, in the cradle of civilization, with the longest recorded human history, those guys running that spot want us and you not breathing. They want you dead. You can pretend they don't. You could be like that adorable CNN reporter who said, yeah, it's a new Taliban. They're very progressive. Sure, they're chanting death to America, but they seem friendly. I don't know why Americans have started to hate themselves, particularly white people. Well, okay, I shouldn't say I don't not know why. Sure, there was some reasons to, maybe. But none of these issues had anything to do with us who are alive right now. So I don't know where this general level of self-loathing and just not self-worth has sprung up from. Probably a desire, at least in society, for some people to want to cut off their own dicks. That if you were to ask me, that's probably where some of this self-worth issue is coming from. When we got people wanting to cut off their own dicks and have insurance cover it, maybe just talk to a therapist first. But anyway, we're maybe for a different day. You know what I'm saying? So tuck it back, girlfriend. Because Rachel Dolezal is ready to take over OnlyFans. Jesus. Literally, man, we need help if you're a listener. So take a minute to just do a little research. Maybe say a prayer for the people of Afghanistan. Maybe vote. Maybe don't. I don't even know anymore. Part of me wonders if it's even worth getting upset over, because it feels like you can't change anything. It feels like we're on a crash course. And we are. That's a funny thing, right? Like, we are on a crash course. There's a bunch of crash courses happening all at once, and they're all staggered, like a fucking 80-mile... I don't even know how to talk about sprinting and running as a sport. Can you believe it? 800 meters or whatever. So, like, there's a crash course that the planet is going to just cease to exist and freeze over because the Earth's, following the sun, and the sun's a star, and stars explode, so eventually that'll happen. And then there's the crash course of, like, America, like, as a country, that just seems like we're on a tracked path that doesn't end well. And that has happened all the time, at least with countries on Earth that we know of. Rome, ancient Greece, Pompeii, Göbekli Tepe, and then all the alien ones from Egypt that we're still learning about, or some of us have known about, or some of us are still pharaohs. But it really feels like at least America is on a crash course where we're not even trying to make it better. We're actively trying to speed it up. We're actively trying to speed it up. We're fighting over medicine that works. I got vaccinated. I don't like the idea of it. I want everyone to get vaccinated, but I was also hoping to never have to get vaccinated. And kind of my plan was to maybe, if I could, be the very last guy to get vaccinated. But at the end of the day, I'm not stupid. I know more people who have died from coronavirus than I do who have died from getting a vaccine. And my own mother, who I like, who I love. I really should have said love first, but I was just trying to think of a way to be funny there. She got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine literally like a week before all that stuff came out about blood clots, specifically in women with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So I had a few days as someone who reads the news and assumes almost literally worst case scenario all the time, and then I get to be surprised when it doesn't happen. I had a few days where I was really fucking worried because, make no mistake, I still think this virus is not just happenstance that just sprung up out of nowhere. So I was really worried. I was worried for my mom when that happened. Of course it ended up being okay because I like the odds of a fucking vaccine from a company better than I like the odds of a woman's compromised immune system against a bat virus made in a research facility funded with, unfortunately, her own tax dollars in some parts. So that's, these are the things that make you wonder, like, why care? Why even call attention to it? I don't even know if calling attention to it should count as trying to solve it. Is it? Did I solve anything? Does any of this feel solved? In a weird way, it kind of does. Because when you talk or you put something out loud, what you're kind of doing is you're making a list. You're making a grocery list. You're making a task list, a list for the day. Well, you're listing things. When you put a thought out loud with your mouth, as long as it's a good one, you're making a goal for yourself, for someone who hears it, maybe just for the fucking sound waves that just float off into the ether until they hit the sun and then they blow up again. If you feel like you could do better, if you feel like you could be a little more interested, if you feel like you haven't been the best version of yourself, there are a lot of reasons right now, at least it looks like to me, where you should feel inspired enough to try and do something about it.